is this button? Thank you very much indeed, Chairperson. In the first instance, I'd like to give the committee 4 copies of court cases that we have fought over this issue for the information of members, because I think they demonstrate a sorry history of ducking and diving and of obfuscation and of avoidance. Starting off with the avoidance of the very pertinent remedial action that was ordered by the Public Protector, and then avoiding the consequential actions or judgments of not only the Cape High Court on 2 occasions, but also the Supreme Court of Appeal. And I find that it is almost surreal that in the face of a Chapter 9 institution finding and judgments by 3 different courts, that we can find ourselves in this meeting still discussing whether or not Mr. Motsoeneng should or shouldn't be a member of the staff of the SABC. Now, this has gone a long way, and I'd hope that this is the beginning of the end of it, because the presentation that we saw here is at best disingenuous, because it doesn't address the real problems. It's sort of technical response which has characterized everything that the SABC has given in its court defense. But let's just start with the argument that that Mr. Motsoeneng was cleared by a disciplinary hearing. That disciplinary hearing took place in mid-December last year. It was a complete farce. Critical people were not called as witnesses. No evidence was led at all in respect of one of the charges. It's wrongly sought to second-guess the findings and remedial action of the Public Protector, and for that reason, the Democratic Alliance has taken that disciplinary proceedings on review in the courts, and we are now awaiting a judgment on that matter. But it goes beyond that, in my view, because the Cape High Court and the SCA found that it was irrational and unlawful to appoint Mr. Motsoeneng as the COO, not only because of the Public Protector's remedial action, but also because of the cumulative damning findings they made about Mr. Motsoeneng in the course of that report. And those findings and remedial action are binding unless they are set aside on review. Now, my understanding is the SABC has, in fact, launched a review application, or seeks or purports to want to do so, which brings me to the point that was already being raised here around the legal fees. I mean, we are now litigating in millions of rands. According to the latest SABC annual report, the legal fees went up from 171 million to 257 million rands. And I would argue that if people want to litigate to look after their positions, they must litigate in their personal capacities and pay for the court cases themselves. They cannot make the corporation pay for it. So that's the one aspect. Then let's come on to the appointment of the Chief Executive Corporate Affairs. And it is true on one narrow definition that the appointment was lawful because it was made by the right people or the right person. But there are 2 other aspects that I think are relevant in this respect. And Mr. Justice Davis found that Mr. Motsoeneng could not be precluded from consideration in a staff position because it was possible that the Public Protector's findings would be proved false. Now, there's only one way in which the Public Protector's findings can be found to be false, and that is if you take the matter on review. That action has not yet happened, and it can only happen if her findings are reviewed and set aside by a court. It is plainly contrary, in our view, to the findings of 3 courts to appoint Mr. Motsoeneng as the Chief Executive Corporate Affairs, while the Public Protector's findings still stand. And I think we need some very honest answers out of the board, because it is true, as I said, that people can make that decision and it's not a board decision. But the board has a fiduciary duty to oversee the activities of the chief executives. And if it fails to exercise that power, then it becomes complicit in unlawful and bad decisions that are taken by the management of the SABC. Quite apart from the fact that it was against the law in our view. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I would like to firstly say, Chairperson, that I think the presentation that we've been given today is an absolute, it's just not, it cannot suffice. I think the information that we've been presented with is mere smoke and mirror type of arguments and explanations that this board is advancing. And I think first and foremost, we must acknowledge today that we've got a politically compromised board that is sitting in front of us, that are have not only ignored binding findings by the Public Protector, but have willfully and purposefully ignored court findings. You are also not adhering to the Broadcasting Act. You are not complying with your fiduciary duties. That's why we've seen another 400 million rand loss. And so I think the Chairperson is quite right when he says this is not only about Mr. Motsoeneng. It's not only about Mr. Motsoeneng. It's about a board that has failed this organization. And I listened to what the Chairperson said in terms of who decided to give Mr. Motsoeneng his job back, or his old job back. And that is all fine and well, because you do have those powers, CEO. But the fact of the matter is the Public Protector's findings, as my colleagues have said, are binding. And no DC or a kangaroo DC court that was instituted could actually overturn those findings. And Chairperson, I also want to have some clarity today in terms of the increase in salary that Mr. Motsoeneng has again received. Also, there are reports of another bonus that Mr. Motsoeneng has received of 11 point something million, and I think we need to get some clarity on that issue. The Honourable Self has just spoken about frivolous court cases or court cases, and I think we need also today to hear about whether this board will be collectively held responsible for the expenditure for these frivolous court cases. I also, watching the press conference where Prof. Magove had actually announced to South Africans that he is reappointing Mr. Motsoeneng into his old position. I also want to say that I take great offence to both the CEO and the professor, the chairperson of the board, again saying that political parties should not interfere in the affairs of the public broadcaster. In my mind, you are then saying to every South African that you are not a stakeholder in the public broadcaster. You are saying, hands off, you do as you please. We as ordinary South Africans that are expected to pay TV licenses have got we are not allowed to make any inputs or give any insights into the public broadcast. And I think it shows very poor leadership on behalf of the board, that you again, every time when you're at a press conference, every time when you address critical issues which South Africans are concerned about, you want to blame political parties or opposition parties. And I really think it's time for this board to acknowledge that you've failed in your duties, that you are no longer fit and proper to be a board that leads the public broadcaster. And I think eventually we will have to get to the point where we talk about the elephant in the room, and I'm not talking about Mr. Motsoeneng, because he's not a board member, but about how we got to the point of appointing this board, because I served on this portfolio committee between 2012 and 2014, and it was a very difficult process, because I said at the start, this is a politically compromised board, Chairperson, because while we were interviewing each and every member that serves on this board, political interference were part and parcel of how we got to appoint this board. And once you appoint cadres to a board, then you'll have a situation which we've got here. So if we do get to that point where we go for an inquiry or we talk about whether this board is still fit for purpose, we must also talk about the failed process that led us to appointing this board, Chairperson. That being said, I think we really need answers today from this board. You have failed us because this is not just about Mr. Motsoeneng. It's about the rule of law. It's about doing what is right and what is wrong. And I feel sorry for Mr. Naidu here, because he's actually been brave enough to speak out against the actions of the board. And one also thinks about the bravery of the late Hope Zinde, for example. But let us leave here today with the common understanding, Chairperson, that we need to rescue the public broadcaster from a board that is no longer fit to lead it, Chairperson.
Honorable Shivambo.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair. One of the most important judgments in South Africa since constitutional democracy, which includes everyone, was the judgment delivered on the 31st of March by the Chief Justice on the matter between the economic freedom fighters and the Speaker of the National Assembly, which put to rest the powers of the public protector, whether they are binding or not, whether the remedial actions are recommendations or not. And part of that judgment says that the investigative powers of the public protector are not supposed to bow down to anybody, not even to the door of the highest chamber of raw state power. That same judgment also says that if compliance with remedial action were optional, the very few culprits, if any at all, will allow it to have any effect. It also says that the public protector would arguably have no dignity and be ineffective if directives could be ignored willy-nilly. Those are some of the things that are contained in the judgment affirming the powers of the public protector. And the interesting thing that relates to this question is that that court also expressed itself on what happens if those who are supposed to comply with the public protector remedial actions engage in a parallel process. With regards to the case that was taken to the Concord, the Chief Justice said that the end results of the two streams of investigative processes were mutually destructive. And it says then that the President should have decided whether to comply with the public protector's remedial action or not. If not, then much more than his mere contentment with the correctness of his own report was called for. A branch of government vested with the authority to resolve disputes by the application of law should have been approached, and that is the judiciary. Only after a court of law had set aside the findings and remedial action taken by the public protector would it have been open to the President to disregard the public protector's report. Now, we're speaking about a president here of a republic, the head of state, who is instructed by the constitutional court to abide by the remedial action of the public protector. Now, what are the findings of the public protector on the SABC? Maybe beg your indulgence, and then I'll take you through some of the findings of the public protector on Mr. Motsoeneng, whom I've never got to meet with him anyway. I see him on television saying that he gets out of all troubles. He's MacGyver of our days, who even when situations are very difficult, want to see how it's going to pan out this time. Part of the findings of the public protector is that the allegation that Mr. Motsoeneng committed fraud by stating in his application form that he had completed matric from Motsoeneng High School is substantiated, meaning that it's there. By his own admission, Mr. Motsoeneng stated in his application form that he had passed matric standard 10, filled in made up symbols in the same application form, and promised to supply a matric certificate to confirm his qualifications, when he knew he had not completed matric and did not have the promised certificate. And this he admitted it in the public protector interview process. There is verbatim reflection of him saying that a Miss Sonepol told him to fill in fake information about his matric status. And then the public protector further finds that the allegation that Mr. Motsoeneng was appointed to several posts at the SABC, despite having no qualifications as required for such post, including a matric certificate, is substantiated, and this constitute improper conduct and maladministration. So while sitting with an acting executive of something, I don't know what it is because he becomes everything he wants to be, who has been appointed through an improper conduct and through maladministration. And then we must sit here, still have to listen to a board that wants to protect such a person, despite the fact that these findings have not been subjected to a judicial review. And even if you disagree as board members, your right to differ is insignificant. It dwindles into insignificance altogether. Once there's been a ruling that these are the situations, you have to abide by that. You can't engage in a parallel process that deliberately reaches a different conclusion. Parliament attempted that. The Ministry of Police attempted to do that. They went to Nkandla to show bioscope and trying to justify a swimming pool as a fire pool and all sorts of things. And it all fell flat when the Court said that all those activities that we're engaging in are illegal. You have to abide by the rule of law. So the board can't even mention a disciplinary process, a fast disciplinary process that ignored the core findings which they have not judicially reviewed. So unless these findings are judicially reviewed, they hold legal status that must guide what the board does and everything else that was supposed to do. So in fact, we're sitting with an illegal appointee in SABC, not even as a COO, not even as an employee, even as a sweeper. If it requires a matric certificate, the public protector says that he's not supposed to be appointed there because those are the findings. You can challenge that in a court of law, not on a process that we have self-appointed ourselves. Let us deal with the way forward. What should happen? Number one is that the board must be instructed to reverse the appointment of Mr. Motsoeneng because such appointment constituted maladministration and improper conduct. That is what should actively happen. There is and number two, we should as Parliament institute an inquiry into the fitness of the board to continue as the board of the SABC. One, we must investigate their suitability to carry full fiduciary responsibilities as is required by the board charter of the SABC. So fiduciary responsibility would mean that it's a position of trust that we as the public, of the public broadcaster, the public, it's all of us here. We represent the public, we're public representatives. Can we trust the board to carry forward proper management of an institution that is supposed to educate the nation, inform it on critical information in terms of what should happen. But also we should have an inquiry on the board's inability to stabilize the management at the SABC because everyone else is acting there. We know that television goes hand in glove with acting, but not at management level. Acting happens on the screens and generations and all those things there. But at management level, we need stability. It can't be for a very long time. There's acting CFO, acting CEO, acting COO, acting executive corporate affairs, acting special projects, acting everything. All those actors must fall. There must be stable leadership. And it's not even an issue of negotiation. It's an instruction that you have to be given. We are not here to represent our jackets, and we are here to represent the people of South Africa. And the people of South Africa expect that there must be stability in all public institutions. And that is what should happen in the SABC. But also, I get a sense that there are board members who are appointed by Parliament and got removed by the board itself without consulting Parliament and the appointing authority. That is illegal. Where do you get the power to remove board members? Who gives you the power? Because we never appointed you to go. Even your board charter, there's no piece of legislation that empowers any of you to remove board members because you never appointed them. The people who appointed that, it's us as Parliament who recommended to a president to appoint. So that is there's a process that is outlined in the board charter on how members of the board are removed. So in concrete terms, I don't think that we must tiptoe around an inefficient, clumsy board of the SABC that comes with a lousy presentation, yeah? Doesn't say exactly what they've done with each and every remedial action of the public protector. And says that everything else is fine. We say there, what are the implications of the SCA judgment? What are the implications of the High Court judgments? And then they say there's no implication. That is pure arrogance that is being displayed in front of us here. We must take action, and we have to take action now because we cannot continue to be run like that. The time of games has come to an end. Thank you very much.
I'll come to you, Honorable Van Schalkwyk, and then to Dr. Mulder, Honorable Tolashe, Honorable Van Dijk. Anyone else? Anyone? Honorable Machoba. Can I say this, members? Let us for now engage on the report that we were given. There will be time when we must look at all these issues that members are saying in terms of the fitness of the board. There will be that time. For now, let us engage, and the processes will follow where the committee will have to engage and with itself and take a resolution on what must be done. I think let's do that. Let's move towards engaging the report, punch holes, criticize, and do all of that. But at the end, we'll have to come to a session where we say, this is what we have got from the board, and therefore what do we do as the committee? Can you move towards that direction at some stage? Honorable Van Schalkwyk.
Thank you, Chairperson. My question is directed to the Chairperson of the board who made the presentation. He's mentioning that on the 25th of February 2016, the board approved the reorganized structure, which includes the renaming of the GE stakeholder position to the GE corporate affairs position. So I would like to know, when you changed that position, how did that impact on the benefits, salary, and the status of the new position versus the old position? And then afterwards, after the judgment has been implemented by the SABC or tried to be implemented, you've mentioned that the only position that was relevant to Mr. Motsoeneng was the position of GE Corporate Affairs, as he didn't have the competency to occupy the position of GE HR that was vacant. So I would like to know the position that is currently employed in, that he was moved to, that was upgraded in February. Was that position vacant when he was appointed or not? And if not, how did it came about that he occupies that position? And also the processes that has been followed to occupy or let him occupy that position, because we know that there is employment processes, internal employment processes that needs to be followed in order to let someone occupy a specific position. So can you just clarify that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for the opportunity. The Honourable Van der Merwe referred to a press conference that she watched recently by the SABC. Now, I watched another one recently, and I saw the acting COO talking to the media, and he said, well, you were all expecting R1 billion deficit. It's only 400 million. Now, that was, to me, a rather strong red light of what's technically happening around the SABC, unfortunately. And I'm happy this morning, Chairperson, that it's not only the board that is present. We've also got the top management, the executive management of the SABC itself present, because we should not only focus on the board, because the board is not there on a day-to-day basis. The SABC is being run by the management, the executive management of the corporation. The board comes from time to time, and yes, of course, they've got a fiduciary duty, but the emphasis should also be on top management. Now, there was a time not very long ago that the SABC was the gold standard of broadcasting in South Africa. And I'm afraid we all know what the current situation basically is. Now, I've got sympathy with the board and the management with regard to the implementation of the actions taken by the Public Protector. Because the Public Protector's report was some time ago, and then you had a disciplinary hearing, and you referred to that just now, in December of last year. At the time when those things happened, we did not already have the court case of the Constitutional Court in March of this year, which now clarified once and for all what should happen in terms of remedial action expressly put into place by the Public Protector. And unfortunately, that question marks being put on the actions of the Public Protector started here in Parliament. So you obviously took the key from there. But now we know what should happen in terms of the remedial action taken by the Public Protector, also with regard to the SABC. Now, in the report that we've received today, the feedback that we've received creates the impression, or it tries to state, that everything is fine. There's no problem, everything has been handled, there was a disciplinary committee, etc., etc. But that cannot be relevant anymore, because the SABC should now know what the Constitutional Court found in its very precise judgment with regard to the Public Protector. So you can ignore what the disciplinary committee said, and you should implement the findings and the remedial action taken by the Public Protector. Two things that bother me, Chairperson, and you're correct, we should deal with those things at some stage. The one has been referred to, the salary increases received by Mr. Motsoeneng 2013, 2014, and after that. And we all know the figures, 1.4 million, and then very shortly after that to 1.7, that's a 21% increase. And then it jumped to 2.4 million, that's another 41% increase 4 months later. But maybe at the bottom of everything is this very disturbing figure that I see, that in the recent past, more than 53% of the staff of the SABC has resigned. Why would that be? Maybe we should start there. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Van Dijk.
Chair, Section 11.3 of the Public Reporter's report outlined that the remedial action that should be taken by the SAB board, and it says that all monies which were irregularly spent through unlawful and improper action should be recovered from the appropriate persons. And my question would be if any of the fruitful and wasteful expenditure that has been incurred as a result of the irregular salary increments to Mr. Motsoeneng, Ms. Motsoeneng, Ms. Kumala, if that has been recovered from the appropriate persons, and if not, why not? And I would also like to know the board, if it also, according to this actions that they should have been taken, the appropriate disciplinary actions, if they follow that with regards to it points out in 2.AA that I want to know what disciplinary actions has been taken towards Mr. Motsoeneng for his dishonesty relating to the misinterpretations of his qualifications, the abuse of power and the improper conduct of the appointments and salary increments of Ms. Sally Motsoeneng, and for his role in the purging of senior staff members, resulting in numerous labour disputes and settlements awards against the SABC. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Madisha. Sorry, I jumped you.
And it's okay. My chairperson, permit me to once again indicate that the SABC belongs to the people of our country. And we cannot allow any one individual to destroy that which belongs to more than 50 million people of South Africa. We can't. Now, let me first start with the board, because it's a group of two persons, a group of one person who is the culprit here, permit me to say that, and a group of many persons, which is the board, okay? May I check with the honorable respect, my chairperson, why has the board employed and again saved a fraudster? Why have they done that? It's a fraudster because here we're dealing with a person who misrepresents his qualifications. Are we therefore sure, as the representatives of South Africa, that he will be, or will he continue to be less fraudulent as he continues to do that kind of thing? I wish to say that, in my own opinion, the antithesis is the case. We're dealing here, I want to emphasize to the board that we're dealing with a fraudster. Because in the very same way, persons who have gone out, looked for jobs, shown those kind of certificates, etc., they have been indicated, it has been said that they're fraudsters. I'm therefore moving from that president. Now, the increment of monies, of salaries, despite the fact that he does not have the qualifications, okay, that is a major, major problem. My chairperson, Mtlega's move out. The children are not going to school. The students are not going to school. We have all these kind of problems. And here is a person who, despite the fact that almost 4,000 people in SABC are not getting any increments. Here is a person who will take more than 3 million, have that increased to more than 4 point whatever million, who will take that within a very short period of time up. A person who will get more than 11 million rand, they say that that is a bonus. And they further go on and say that is not enough. You'll get 33 million again. Is the board doing okay for us? This is the question that I'm putting through you, Mkega, as my chairperson. Is that proper? Because our country is collapsing. Our country, economically, our children are faced with this kind of a problem. And we have a person who takes that which belongs to the people and does whatever he wants. And when the people say, but here you are wrong, he climbs on the stages and starts, saying there is nothing that you can do to me, etc. And when we call the board here to say, can we talk to you, he sits with the board as if he's a member of the board. Kindly, please, and actually advises them that you must say this, etc. So I'm putting that to you, my chairperson, as part of the questions that I am raising. I further am saying that, is it proper that he goes on to ill-treat workers, he goes on to fire workers, just because of they are requesting for nothing, and thereafter he says come back, it's okay, and so on. I'm putting that to the board via you, because I'm talking here about a person who I wish to re-emphasize is a fraudster. And I'm coming back now to the board, the second person directly. I say to the board that you are unfit. Can you say to me that you are fit, and the members of parliament here, that you are fit? Because if you go on and ignore the law, that is a problem. I mean, even the president of our country, whom I respect very much, has reason to say, but no, please board, let's look into this thing. But then the board has ignored that. Even when the majority party, I mean, that is an open secret, has reason to say there is a problem here, can we do something? That has been ignored. Can we therefore say, through you, Chairperson, that the board is fit to do that? The board that says to the public protector, you can't tell us anything. That tells the Western Cape High Court, you can't tell us anything. The Supreme Court of Appeal, you can't tell us anything. And the board that, instead of addressing the problems, it shifts this, permit me once again to say, fraudster, from one high position to another very high position. What do we do as the 50 million people of this country? And permit me to end by asking, you as the board have asked, have indicated that you have come up with a DC, disciplinary committee. Who appointed that? What were the processes? What did it have to follow? Those particular processes, who drew them? I say this because, in my own opinion, you are part and parcel of this whole thing. And therefore, I believe that there are very serious problems. And like and all the other MPs here, honorable MPs have said, I think we have a very, very serious problem. And you as members of the board, don't you just want to go to meetings every time because of the amounts of money that you get for meetings? I mean, from one meeting to the other. I know that in the past it would be 5,000 per meeting, 5,000 per meeting. It now has gone up. Is it not? Is that not part and parcel of this whole thing? Are you fit?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mklegas.
Thank you. I will give Honorable Machoba, Honorable Tolashe, Honorable Mbinda. This is the first round. I want the board to respond. But before you, Honorable Machoba, let's tone down on the language. The fraudster, for someone who cannot respond, it's not proper.
Chairperson,
you will argue at some
Chairperson,
stage.
the public protector report says that
Imagine-
Claudi has fraudulently represented his matric certificate.
No,
And if you fraudulently represent
understand
something,
that.
you become a fraudster.
we understand that.
So it's English, it's basic language that if you represent something wrongly
We
through
understand
fraudulent
that.
means you become a fraudster.
We
So there's
understand
nothing unparliamentary and wrong with what Honorable
No, I'm
Madisha
not
is
saying,
saying.
Honorable Shibambo, please. I'm not saying it's unparliamentary. But when you call a person a fraudster, I understand English. Person who's fraudulent. But this is a discussion that we must handle carefully. I'm raising it because this is what I said in the last meeting when he was going on to say members are not honorable. At the end, I said it's not correct. You can't have members of parliament that are told by the official are not honorable. This is what I said. And I think, and again, when I was talking to one of these radios, because they continued to play what he was saying and never played what was the chairperson was saying. Let us be very careful. I understand, but let us be careful so that at the end we can do what we want to do. I know he cannot stand up and defend himself, but the board will have to respond. I understand you, Honorable Shibama, very well on that one. I wanted to raise that, member, so that we tone down a bit on our language, because, you know, people are human beings. Bantu ngabantu. So let's not careful, but let's think of other people. I think we've heard Honorable Madisha. It's fine, but I'm saying tone down in that kind of language. Honorable Machaba.
Data. Well,
Yeah.
with your permission,
No,
for
I'll
the
come back
sake
to
of the 50 million people, we shall tone down
Okay.
as long as they are respected.
Okay,
50 million people,
thank you very much.
even if you take anything from them.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the board members to give us this planning report. My first question, Chair, I have only 2 questions. I just need the clarity around them. Before Mr. Motsoeneng was irregularly appointed as an acting COO, what was his position before? And what was his package? Number 2, who occupied the position before and why was she removed? What processes was followed to remove her or him? In the issue of appointment of Mr. Motsoeneng in the position after the COO, Motsoeneng, I'm very sorry to announce your name badly. When was the vacancy of the general employee created? Who created it and what were the recruitment procedures followed? When was the vacancy of group executive, corporate service and provinces created? Who created it and what were the recruitment procedures followed? I just need those 3 clarity. Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mochoba. Honorable Tolashe.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, my first question to the Chairperson of the board. I just want to hear from him whether he understands how the SABC is being established according to the law that governs this country. Because for me, in my mind, when he raised in public the fact that the political parties should not be involved in the dealings of the SABC, then I had this question that whether the Honorable Chair in fact understands how the SABC is established, because in my understanding, these are the people who are responsible to make sure that the constitution of this country is being implemented, and correctly so. And therefore, they have a responsibility to oversee any institution that has been established according to that constitution, to make sure that they are able to really do what they're expected to do. If yes, if he understands, is he prepared to apologize to the 50 million of this country Because for me, what he said was, or what he did was a total disregard of the citizens of this country who went through a very difficult situation to make sure that the 1994 agenda is being achieved. And those are the people who are the most important people in whatever we're doing. And if he said, in fact, he said what he said on the TV, does he understand the implications? Because for me, that was the total disregard of the very constitution that established all these entities. Secondly, Honorable Chairperson, I hear the report saying they've tried to implement the Public Protector's report. How far did they go? Because I'm seated here with a huge document that talks to all that. Can they rate themselves to say, we went 10%? Because for me, the only issue that I see they've tried, we'll judge them later if we're happy on how they've really tried to, is the issue of the Mr. Motsoeneng thing. But everything else has not been touched. There are monies that are questionable that needs to be recouped from different people for different reasons. I don't hear the report talking to that. And the last one, Chairperson, the appointment and the suspension of the GCEO. In that one, Chairperson, I just want to hear whether there's a policy in the SABC to get involved into all this, because I get to hear that at some point the court found that he was incorrectly appointed. The management, whoever responsible, took a decision to reappoint him to another position. Whether this is in line with the laws that govern this country, because we know how this process is supposed to be followed. Whether it's SABC or the National Assembly or anybody else, there should be a process that really is put in place and agreed upon to say, when Tolashe is being removed because she has been appointed wrongly, then there's a process of advertisement and looking for a suitable person. But as I read from what the chairperson has just reported, little of that has taken place. And if it did, can you tell us really in detail, how did it happen? Because this creates a problem for me. Hence, I agree with the member that says, when did this happen? Because you might have an impression that this was just an arrangement between friends. When she's dropped in this position, then you can quickly overnight rearrange so that you can give him the same salary and the same package. I don't want to conclude as such, Chairperson, but I want to get the detail on how did we get there. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Honorable Mbinda.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, without repeating what other honorable members have said, I understand that we should be dealing with policy-related issues here as the honorable members. And I am not sure, I'm sure when you give your response, you will be obviously giving us clarity on your recruitment policy to answer some of the questions that have been asked, and also your remuneration policy. You see, because there are so many issues that have been raised, and I don't want to see myself, involving myself in such issues. But at least if we can be clear as the committee. And also this issue about Undade Tlhaudi, maybe you need to explain to us whether he has actually misrepresented his qualification. You see, I don't want only to deal with the issue of metric, because I understand that these days, if you have your NQF levels and they are equated to M+3, M+4, then it becomes now a different ball game. So I just want you to explain so that we do not, I understand the findings and I understand of the public protector that they have never been, you have never reviewed them in court. And then immediately you don't do that, then that's where the problem is. Then they become now binding as what other honorable members. But I'm just saying in your response, you just clarify those issues so that at least by the time we get out of here, at least we know exactly what actually happened. I will not go to other issues, but if you are seen now to be slanting the system, the very system, then that's where the issue of your fitness comes in, and I'm sure you know, in terms of your fiduciary duties, that you should not be doing that. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Africa. Honorable Mkwena.
Oh, I thought you were going to take some time to get to me. No, Chair, I just wanted to raise the issue of corporate governance. You know, the report seems to be dealing with superficial issues of who's responsible for what and so on and so forth. And I think the board is relying on a legislative loophole, that there's a certain level at which Parliament or government cannot interfere as a shareholder in the SABC. But I think there are much bigger issues. The King 3 report and the OECD recommendations on corporate governance in I think it's chapter 6 that deals specifically with the board, the role of the board. It says that the board must act in the highest ethical standards and act in the interest of the shareholder. And I think that's the key issue we need to consider here. The ramifications of what you do as a board, I think go beyond the responsibilities of government or parliament and so on and so forth, which the board seems to be hiding behind. The Public Protector report has recommended, or at least has made a finding, that there was fraudulent act in the appointment of Mr. Motsoeneng. If you then go and reappoint the same person whom the Public Protector has found to be fraudulent in another position in the same organization, your corporate you've literally gone over your corporate governance principles, because it means that the credibility of the organization that you represent or you preside over is now in question. And that I think that is the bigger question that needs to be dealt with here, beyond legislation and who's responsible for what and so on and so forth. You need to look at, as the board, your responsibility in corporate governance is to protect the credibility of the organization. That is the first point I wanted to make. The second point is that it's said that we come to sit and listen to the board to give us a proper report, a full report on their actions or their response to the remedial actions by the Public Protector. And they come here and give us a report on one issue of one person. I think it shows the level to which Parliament is not taken serious. You know, you're just here literally to come and protect one person, when there's a whole host of issues that you are supposed to respond to. I think that at that level, Chairperson, we need then to question the motives of the board coming here to speak in front of Parliament. Thank you very much.